thank you for laying the foundation for us and for Nigerians. Now, basically, for a layman, there is, appropriate pricing now, quote and unquote. There are three legs: generation, transmission, and distribution. Are we now going to have efficiency in these three critical areas? Generation, transmission, and distribution.
Thank you.
And you give that guarantee?
Only Nigerian banks give BG, bank guarantee. But I'm going to give oral guarantee that if you continue this route, the way we're doing it now, we'll most likely get it right. Has it ever bothered you as a Nigerian? Has it ever bothered Nigerians that this current taxation was not the one that privatized? It was privatized far back as reform started with Obasanjo, then Jonathan and the rest. Has it ever bothered you that Nigeria was around 3,000, 4,000 megawatts before privatization? And a decade after, we are still around 4,000 there, about 10 years plus after privatization. Nigeria is now spending much more in a supposedly privatized power sector. Nigerians are still in darkness, perhaps paying more for darkness 10 years after privatization. Should we continue that route? The answer is no. Are we now doing the right thing? Honestly, the answer is yes. Let me start from the first one, the transmission. I have my issues with the transmission. The federal government is still the owner of the transmission infrastructure 100%. The first ugly experience I had was with the Manitoba Hydro. In 2014, 2015, a Canadian firm called Manitoba Hydro International was approached by the federal government to do what? To come and take charge of the transmission for purposes of managing it. They entered into transmission management contract. I wasn't comfortable. I saw a few things wrong, a lot of things wrong. And I said, this will not carry us to where we are going. When they couldn't listen to me, I put pen to paper, I expressed my feelings. And 2 months later, all what we predicted happened. And people said there was a wish. I said, we don't need to be a soothsayer because we saw we were headed in the wrong direction. Now, Manitoba Hydro is gone. They couldn't manage the transmission infrastructure of Nigeria, and TCN is federal government's baby. Now we have Siemens. Siemens, I think, is about to bring some miracles. I'm still waiting for the miracles because the miracles ought to have happened like 3-4 years ago. It's not happening yet, and I'm not as optimistic. I've said that severally, and I'm still saying it. As a concerned Nigerian, I will be pleasantly surprised if the Siemens people are able to get miraculous with what they promised. Gladly, the president got to Germany. He took it upon himself as a leader to go and ask relevant questions with the Siemens people, with the German chancellor. We are hoping we're going to get it right at the level of transmission. But for the transmission, the world is going off-grid. Just as we argue elsewhere that, the world is taking cars off the road, Nigerians are putting cars on the road. The world is going off-grid. The world is going decentralized grid. The world is going concession grid. The world is going mini-grid. Mobile power plant. So many renewable options. Extensive solarization. We are still battling with our grid. The grid was conceived as a structure to service a few people. We have expanded in leaps and bounds as a country of over 200 million. Now, the grid can no longer accommodate. That is why, for instance, in the petroleum sector, if you have a tank that is designed for 5,000 liters. Any attempt to put 6,000 is going to burst. The same thing. The grid infrastructure is weak. It's designed for minimal capacity. Any attempt to exceed that limit is going to have grid collapse. And there are other factors that will lead to grid collapses. That's why we've been having grid collapses for obvious reasons, low rejection and others. At some point, we predicted we are going to have like average of 10 to 12 per year, and that has been happening. Is that the way to go? No. Do we have a problem with the grid? Yes. Are we about to solve it? Yes. Is it solved already? No. Are there signs that it might be solved? Yes. Going to the generation. Generation is a major challenge. We have hydro generation here and there. We have stranded megawatts here and there that couldn't be evacuated on the national grid. Why? Because the grid infrastructure is very weak. If you exceed the capacity, it's going to burst. Have we expanded the grid? We ought to. Have we revamped the grid? We ought to. Was that proper grid management? I'm not sure. Because those grids started in 1861 and weren't paying sufficient attention to it. But now we shouldn't even be talking of a federated grid in the 21st century. That's why I'm glad that we're able to have a way in terms of decentralized energy option that brought about conceding concession of powers to state government to now generate, transmit, and distribute in respect of areas both covered by national grid and those not covered by a national grid. Power has never been a federated thing. Under the unamended Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, second schedule, item 13, federal government was in charge of on-grid in terms of generation, transmission, and distribution, while states specifically had powers in respect of areas not covered by a national grid under the unamended version of the Constitution. But under the anomaly we had was under the Electric Power Sector Reform Act, now repealed, it was centralized. It was centralized to a ridiculous extent that we now had items that ought not to be the burden of the federal government being given to the federal government. For instance, Rural Electrification Agency, Rural Electrification Fund. Under the unamended Constitution, rural electrification connotes rural. It is off-grid. But the act was going against the Constitution. We pointed it out. I pointed it out, but nobody was listening. And now, federal government was now concerning itself with issues as mundane as solar, wind in the rural areas, in the communities. That was not going to be sustainable, and the cost was humongous, not done transparently. From inception, that was why the first thing that happened with the Rural Electrification Agency and Fund was the issue of corruption and embezzlement. That happened years back, 2013. I'm not going to mention names. Like I said in another studios, if you Google it, you're going to see the name of a junior brother of a powerful banker who was the chairman of House Committee on Power. It was about this Rural Electrification Agency, Rural Electrification Fund. Recently, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu had to sack the MD of Rural Electrification Agency. Rural Electrification Agency and Fund, to me, was just a job for the boys. Somebody will come from Abuja to come and put solar panel in your father's village in Ijegun, in Alabata, my father's ancestral home. What's the business of the federal government with rural electrification? Those should be considered to state, and state can team up with the local government